Hi, everyone. My name is John Howard. I'm co-founder and creative director at LOOOK. We're a Seattle-based mixed reality design and development studio. Prior to that, prior to co-founding LOOOK, I spent 2 years on the HoloLens project at Microsoft as a principal creative director, working with partners like NASA, Autodesk, and Trimble. And what I want to talk about today is creating experiences for virgin audiences. So specifically, what do I mean when I talk about virgin audiences? Specifically, I mean people who have never touched, never seen, and likely never heard of any AR or VR device. And this is actually really important because when we think about virgin audiences, we have to think about the adoption curve. And I think traditionally in tech, when we think about adoption curve, we think about a progression from left to right, from early adopters through to the main part of our audience to the laggards. And if we address that early adopters, we'll eventually work through that adoption curve to get where we want to go. The problem is in business and enterprise, often the gatekeepers are those laggards. And if you cannot speak to them as an audience and you just focus on the early adopters, you actually miss the middle ground, which is the main users, the majority of users. And so when we think about these audiences, one of the things that's important is when we talk to those audiences, we need to talk to them in the language they understand. If we think about all those audiences the same way, and we think about everyone as early adopters, we really miss what is important to each one of those audiences. So prior to working on HoloLens and prior to working at LOOOK, I spent about 18 years in the games industry. And one of the things that's great about coming from games is not only does it build a foundation for creating real-time 3D applications and real-time 3D experiences, but it gives you a fundamental understanding of storytelling and the way you can use storytelling to communicate information. And when we think about stories and we think about how this works as a tool, when we look at virgin audiences, what we are really doing is telling them stories about solving a problem. Sorry, click again. And like any good thing, there's a structure to doing this. So this is the idea of a simple 5-act structure applied to a storytelling problem. And to make sense of this, I'll just give you guys a quick example. So one of the projects that I worked on when I was at Microsoft was a collaboration with NASA. So NASA and Jet Propulsion Laboratory in 2011 launched the Curiosity Mars rover. And the principal team of scientists who work on this project are geologists. Geologists are field scientists. They want to go out and they want to explore their environment and use their powers of natural human intuition to better understand their environment. The problem is that these scientists only had flat panoramic photos of the Martian terrain to understand Mars. And so JPL's operations team, the ops lab, built an early prototype using early VR headsets to take those photos and use photogrammetry to turn those back into the 3D Martian terrain. The problem they had was that the mission planning tools they used were still trapped on their PCs. And so you're solving one problem, but you're introducing another problem. And it was around this time that NASA and JPL came to Microsoft and saw the HoloLens before it was pre-released. So the HoloLens, as most people here know, is a mixed reality device that allows you to take 3D information and project it into the real world. So we can see digital information and the real world at the same time. And what this allowed the team at Microsoft to do, and this is a video, and if I had a thing I'd play the video, is to be able to continue to see and use their computer while being immersed in that Martian terrain and actually collaborate with other scientists on Mars. So now those geologists are actually meeting with their colleagues and holding their meetings about the Martian terrain on Mars. And so again, this is an example, but I think it proves how you can utilize this idea of a 5-act story structure to communicate a solution to a problem to a new audience. Not interested in the technology, just interested in the problem and the solution. And so this works really, really well, and this worked great at Microsoft. In fact, this was one of the primary demos we would give at Microsoft when we were showing people what the HoloLens was and how this technology was going to work. And we gave this demo hundreds, if not thousands of times to great reaction. But all of that sort of ability to communicate comes at a cost. This demo set up in a dedicated room, had a 3-person demo team, had a private server and network set up so we didn't have to deal with any networking problems, and we had audience handlers who prepped people on what the HoloLens was before they got into the room of that demo. And so if you're Microsoft, this is fantastic, and it's the best possible way to run a demo. It's excellent. But if you're a small, scrappy startup like Look, this is way too expensive. That doesn't work super well. So one of the things that we started to do when we built Look was to say, how do we take this idea and how do we apply this idea of using stories using stories about solving problems to communicate ideas to new audiences, but do it at a smaller scale. And so one of the things that we did as we worked through this, and we worked through some of the projects we did last year, was to take this idea and apply it to those client projects. So one of the first ones I want to talk about is a project we did with KPMG. So KPMG has insight centers where they bring in C-suite level clients and use advanced data analytics and data visualization to tell them stories about how KPMG's business can solve problems for them. But the thing that they do is they still present this information on big, giant, flat, interactive 2D monitors. And so this is great for presenting information, but you have to weed through a lot of information, a lot of these data on these screens, and put picture together in your head. So what we wanted to do was be able to use HoloLens and built a 3D data visualization app for KPMG to use. So this data-driven app allows us to take more dimensions of data into a single visualization that's interactive and much easier for people to understand and draw inspiration from than having to look at a big set of flat screens. So in January of this year, KPMG and Look were invited to Davos to present this work at the World Economic Forum. And in these demos, we were able to link together 15 HoloLenses and be able to run CEOs and other executives and Davos attendees through these demos at a really high through rate. And let me go back really quick. Is that the right button? Back. There we go. So we started here, and we'll take this, and KPMG is rolling this out this year to put this into those insight centers in Frankfurt, Hong Kong, London, and New York. And so this was in terms of being able to do throughput and the cost of running individual demos, this structure stays the same. We start with a problem, and we start with a status quo. We look at our problem, and we take our innovation and we apply that, and we create a new status quo. And we're able to do this with a higher level of efficiency than we were with the demos we did for NASA. We're able to run 15 people through a session. These could be self-guided experiences so that people could interact, and other guests who didn't want to interact with a thing could just watch and get the impact and the value of actually being able to see that data and actually gain the insights from that data. But from this, there are still some challenges. This was a data-driven tool, not just a demo, and a lot of the interaction stuff, things like learning gestures and bits like that to interact with the HoloLens, make it not harder, but take a little longer for some folks to understand, especially when you're dealing with CEOs and executives, again, who are not interested in the technology. It can also be a lot to take in. There's a lot of parts to this. And setup for multi-user can actually take quite a bit of time when you try to get one of these things set up. And one of the goals we want to be able to do with this is to be able to make it mobile. So again, there's a good improvement here in terms of being able to take something and make it work for a smaller audience or a smaller company with more people running through that same demo. How can we apply this to another project and improve it and refine it even more? So end of last year, we worked with a company called BGC Engineering. BGC Engineering are applied earth sciences consulting firm based in Vancouver who work with the mining and the resource industries, who were interested in understanding how they could solve a problem they have, which is today, when they go and sit in front of a regulator or an executive or a community group, they lay out 1,000 two-dimensional engineering drawings and say, if you can make sense of this 1,000 two-dimensional engineering drawings, you're gonna understand the problem I'm gonna solve for your business. That's hard for an engineering expert. That's really difficult for someone who's a non-expert. So again, how do we take our virgin audience and use this technology to help solve a real problem? So we start with that engineering data and those flat engineering drawings, and we turn that into not only interactive maps, but immersive landscapes, so that when we build a reclamation project, so we take a mine and turn it into, and if you can play the video please, and take that mine and turn it into a reclaimed landscape to show that that mine is a temporary use of the land, we can actually take you and immerse you into that environment. And if you could click on that for me at the back just to run this video. Maybe not. So we were able to take and refine this experience again, right? How do we take this and make it fully portable? So even with a single device, we can go out and do a lot of demos really, really quickly. make it even easier to navigate by using just the ability to use gaze and voice to navigate this type of experience, make it an easy demo so that I can demo over the shoulder because it's a very simple linear experience for someone to go through because I'm just trying to communicate a solution to a problem. I'm able to know where they are at in that demo and guide them through it just by understanding where they're at using those voice commands, and then allow people to self-guide themselves through those demos and that experience. So in summary, what do we want to accomplish here? We wanted to understand that most audiences are virgin audiences. The majority of people, especially in an enterprise setting that you're going to be presenting to, very often the people who are going to sign the checks have never seen or used one of these devices and frankly could care less about the technology. So if you can reaching that audience is about telling them a story that solves a problem for them. And that if we can use that idea of this 5-act structure to build our technology demos around, and we focus on how we can make those faster and simpler and more portable, we can be more successful as we try and spread the gospel of how this technology is going to transform people's businesses. Thank you.